I'm converting my 2012 Charger from a column shift to a floor shifter. I've got some of the work done, so I'm going to just go back over a couple of things here. The bottom panel has been removed below the column. This instrument panel has been removed, and this side panel had to be removed, I believe, before I could fully release the lower panel. Then to take this shifter mechanism out, I started by finding these two screws right here, removing those, and I see there's one screw right there that has to be removed, but I can't get to the head of that because this lower assembly is in place, and I really don't want to take that off. So since I'm not saving this shifter mechanism, I'm going to take my hacksaw blade and I'm going to cut through this. I'm not going to waste your time showing you all that, but I'll get back to you as soon as I get a few things done. Okay, so I've cut through that, and it's loose. See if I can show that. Yeah, see, I just didn't take long at all to just hacksaw through that with just a blade, without the saw. And then the other thing I noticed, as soon as I did that, the shifter handle popped right out of its socket easily and just hung there. So it has a cord attached to it, which plugged in right there. So I disconnected that plug and the shifter became completely free. Now I can just pull it out of there permanently and with the wire, and now I should be able to maneuver the old shifter out of position, which might take me a while, so I'm going to turn this off. Okay, I'm going to backtrack a little bit here. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but this panel, this logic box, whatever it is, had to come out from this location. Had two Torx head screws on each side holding it in place, but just let that hang there. So I got this out. There were only a couple of things I didn't mention that before I even started. I had to pop the shift cable off of this, but it comes off easily. Just a flathead screwdriver, just get behind, leverage it off, and it comes right off. There was a wiring harness, anchor basically. I had to snip that, and one connector, which I unplugged that after I got this out. So this is completely free now, and I can get rid of that. Okay, I got a weed whacker running in the neighbor's yard. Sorry about that, but keep thinking of things that I did before I started this video, so I'm going to back up a little bit. When I took this panel off, this lower section right here, there were several things connected to it. These three connectors, the hood latch, these things all come out easily. There were a bunch of these. I had to number them 1 through 6, so that when I put it back together I won't be confused about that. And also put numbers on the receptacles, so you know which end to start with. So here's the shifter cable hanging down here. After I popped this off here, it was still, the casing was still attached back here in the white plastic, so that was a little bit difficult, but it did pop out so that this is hanging freely. So it looks to me like I've been told I can salvage this cable, but it looks like it'll have to be rerouted through the firewall a different way. In the firewall, I believe it's this cable right here. If I can get down here, yeah, where it goes through that round grommet. So I'm going to just pull that through, and hopefully I'll see the correct linkage on the other end when I pull it out. All right, I pulled it out, and there it is. This giant bushing here was going through the firewall, and I didn't realize it had this big undercut on it, so it was very hard to pull out. Ideally, you want to grab this and pull it out. I tried and couldn't get it out, so I just grabbed the cable and pulled real hard, and it eventually did come out with all this kind of bunched up together, which could have damaged it, but it looks okay. But still, pull it out by that piece if you can. Now, you see it goes way down to the transmission from here. So the next thing I think I'll have to do is I'm going to have to jack this up and find out where the alternate firewall punch out is so that I can reroute this thing. Hopefully there'll be a hole plug there that I can swap back up and plug the original hole. Okay, so I got good news and I got bad news. Well, first I'm going to show you I took this part off. I just cut through it, took this off the cable, and I'm going to just put this back where it was, and there's a hole in the middle. Maybe I'll stick a pin cap or something in there just to seal it off. So now I got under the car and I found the access hole directly above the transmission, just behind the firewall, and there is no way I'm going to get that through there, given my resources. So what I did was I cut a slit in the steering boot, and I know that's not everybody's going to agree with me on this, but that's how I got it through. And I should have enough cable from that point. So here's my cable, and I'm going to run it back through there underneath the center of the console and try to get it to come out right there. Okay, so here we have the old unit and the new unit. Underneath the steering column there is a wire that used to plug in right here. I needed to plug in right here. So I needed about another 2 or 3 feet. Now conveniently, this is everything I need, except it's too short. So what I'm going to do is take this lead right here, untape it, get some wire, extend it 3 feet, plug this end under the steering column, snake it through to the console, plug the other end in right there, and everything should work electrically. Okay, so here's my setup. When I got this thing salvaged, this part was attached to the pin, so I just popped that off with a screwdriver. I won't be using that piece. I will be hooking this up the same way that it was in the other installation, where I slip this into here and pop this onto there, and at that point I'll be ready to mount it in place like this. Now when I got this piece, these holes were way too big, and these studs, keeping in mind that this was a police car, this mounting, although the stud locations are in the right place, they are only like a metric M6 thread, which is smaller than 1/4 of an inch, and so this would swim on here. So I had to make bushings to get it to fit better.
And I made those out of plastic and just pressed them in. I have a link, or I will give you some parts, part numbers and things that I purchased from McMaster-Carr to get this installation done. Like for instance, the M6 flange nuts and this bushing stock that I used to make these. On my next segment, I will give you those numbers. And if you're not a McMaster-Carr customer, it's really easy. Just go on their website. It's like Amazon. Set up an account, and I usually get things within one day. It's the Amazon of hardware, and I highly recommend that you use that as a resource when you're doing a lot of this type of work. Okay, that did not work the way that I planned. It all fit together fine, but strangely, it's not long enough. And there's no other place to mount this, so what I'm going to do, this seems correct, I'm going to use this as an extension. This should put me right where I need to be. But these flanges are in the way. Like, I can't bolt that on there, so I'm gonna cut those away so that I can bolt that flat. And then I'll put that all together, and if there's any issue with that, I'll let you know. Okay, that worked perfectly, just so you know. You need that part, but you do have to cut it. I'm not sure what was intended with all this, but that works. In case you're not familiar, this is the park release. So if you can't get it out of park now or sometime in the future, that's what does it, as an override in case the solenoid is not working. Okay, so I made this extension, and the cool thing about it is that it plugs into itself. So you plug one end in under the dash above or below the steering column, and soon we're going to route that through into the console and plug it into the new shifter. Now, we got some side notes here. Okay, I just made a quick correction there before I give you these part numbers up close. That first tubular thing was wrong, so the new one, I got it right down. It's the last one on the list here. So I'll go through them real quick. You've got your M6 nut to hold down your shifter. You have the flat washer to go with that nut. You've got this M5 screw, 20 millimeter long, stainless steel. That's kind of expensive. You only need one of them, and it costs $11. So I want you to look for a number 1032 by 3/4, which a lot of people are going to have that, and it will screw into an M5 hole, believe it or not. They're so close to being the same size. Now this is your plastic bushing here at the bottom. This bushing is you'll cut 1/2 inch slices off of that bushing, and then you put a slit in each section so that it will compress a little bit when you put it in the hole, and that'll come out, that'll work perfectly for you. Okay, so let's just breeze through these parts here. Make sure you get these correct. That's the number that starts with a 9. Those are your part numbers. Okay, back at the car. So this is the final connection here under the dash. I routed this through exactly the same way as I did the cable. Plugged it in right there, so it plugs in exactly like the old shifter. You can see I dropped these down onto the studs. There's a little black bushing in there that keeps it well centered. This is what's left of the stock that I bought after I made those bushings, and I just realized that this thing slides right down over my stem. Like if you want a fatter looking shifter lever, that is a great way to make use of that extra material. Okay, just a couple of things before I wrap this up. Let when we took this apart, this comes out with a spatula, just like a plastic, heavy plastic spatula, except right there, hard to see, but there's a hole right there. There's one screw in this whole thing. Everything else is like a snap tab. Before you put stuff together, you're going to want to do a quick test drive. With these things all unplugged, you're going to have a few things that don't work. Your fan won't work, your radio won't work, your door locks won't work, except with the remote. Check it out, test it out, put it all back together. Good luck. Oh, I'm gonna post one more thing. If you're putting a stock console in, I'm going to give you a link to another YouTube that will help you a lot with that. I personally am not doing that. I'm putting a different type of console in, so I will refer you to another video. Okay, this should complete your project. Just go see this guy. 2011 through 2014 Dodge Charger Police Pursuit Center console. I'm not doing that, but you probably are, so go see this guy. He doesn't do the mechanical work that I showed you, but he does show you how to install this console.